Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. So let us start with our session, AI for Developers. So before I get into the session, a quick, like a poll type of thing. So how many of you attended or planning to attend the entire AI pathway? Great. So you have attended the couple of sessions that happened yesterday. Great. So this is just a continuation of the AI pathway session, which is AI for developers. We're pretty much focused on developers who are thinking about like, okay, what is AI to me? And what are the skills I need to gain? And how do I use AI in my organization? And so there were some questions around like, what am I going to cover in this? Like, am I going to just keep on writing code in C# or F# or some other languages? I'll be definitely showing Visual Studio for sure, and some examples using C#. But I think there will be a lot of concepts that will be explained, and also like if you are new to AI or if you know a little bit about AI, still this session is going to be valuable because I think you will definitely get something out of this session for sure. Great, so without any further delay, let us get into today's topic, AI for developers. General things, and everyone knows about PaaS. And if you are new and if you have just registered with PaaS, PaaS runs a lot of virtual webinars and a lot of sessions, and feel free to join those virtual webinars and things. They are really handy, and it will be good. Great. Little bit about myself. I'm Anupama Natarajan. So I'm coming from Wellington, New Zealand. So all the way, like it is a 20-hour journey. Great. And coming here to share my knowledge about AI, especially from a developer background. So I started my career as a developer and currently like working as a data consultant. And so it's been a journey for me. So I'll just share my experiences as part of this session. And I'm a Microsoft MVP for AI, and I'm a certified trainer as well as a speaker at various conferences. I run local user groups back in Wellington, New Zealand, as well as a SQL Saturday organizer. I think everyone knows about SQL Saturday, so I'm not going to more publicize about it. But I think back over there in New Zealand, like I just organize it in one of the city. Great, I do write blogs, and the blogs are just quoted over there. One is my personal, and one I write it through my company blog. And so both of them has got information that you can go and look at it, and especially around the cognitive services and other AI related stuff. Great, so this is the AI pathway if people who haven't really looked into. So if you are thinking about like taking your career in AI, I would recommend to attend the sessions in this pathway. And what I'll be covering is AI for developers. So if you're a DBA or if you're a BI professional or an analyst, there are separate sessions today that are happening today and tomorrow. It is going to happen. So feel free to go and attend those sessions because they are really valuable. And so there was a plan that went around these sessions. Like the AI pathway was planned back in March, and we know what we will be covering in each of our speaker sessions. So there is not going to be any repetition or anything if you're worried about it. So depending on the type of role that you are currently working on or planning to move on, make sure to attend any of those sessions. Great. So agenda for today's session. So we'll be looking at cloud data and AI. So even though like it was quite interesting yesterday in Anna's session, like there was a question asked like, what is AI? And someone responded saying like buzzword. And which is correct. Like I'm not going to say like that is wrong because it's AI being a buzzword, and everyone talks about AI, and a lot of organizations are thinking about like, okay, we have to bring AI inside our organization. And one of the things that they need to also consider about is like who are the people we have in our organization, what skills are required to bring AI into our organization, and so on. And when this pathway was defined, I was so happy because it is trying to address that problem, which is around what skills like people really need if you want to embrace AI in your organization. We'll also look at what does Azure AI platform offers for developers. I'll be focusing more around like what developers can take out of that. And what are the key skills the developers require if they want to use AI. And coming from a developer background, and suddenly when people started talking about data scientists, machine learning, algorithms, and all those fancy terms, even to be honest, I was a bit afraid. I said like, okay, what is going on here? How am I going to catch up on things? But I think there is a lot of good things that to consider, which I will talk about when we look into the AI skills for developers slide. Common things that we used to do, but we need to just change our direction a little bit and focus on a different set of subject areas, and that's what it is. So it's not fundamentally changing what the developer does, but there are some areas we need to upskill ourselves in order to support or embrace AI in our organization. We'll also look at cognitive services and bot framework and some examples around or demos around that, saying like how do you use cognitive services and bot framework in your organization. And one common thing which I normally tell people is you don't need a greenfield project if you want to bring AI in your organization. So straight away, if you go back to your organization and think about like, okay, we have to bring AI, don't think about like, oh, okay, someone has to fund for it and we need to start some project from scratch and we need to find out like what are the AI use cases and so on. You can take an existing application and immediately you can turn that into an AI-enabled application. So that is what, as simple it is. And these are different services that Microsoft provides that allows you to do that, and which we will be seeing as part of cognitive services and bot framework. We'll touch on machine learning for developers. This is the scary topic, I would say, machine learning for developers. So you would have seen like a data scientist talking about machine learning, but of course, like Microsoft is making it easy. All the products which Microsoft have been developing is to make or empower developers. And of course, like when a complex topic like machine learning comes in, Microsoft have made it simple, like how developers also can use machine learning in their applications. And finally, we will briefly talk about Azure Cognitive Search and what Azure Cognitive Search provides, and a demo to wrap up. Great. So the intersection of cloud, data, and AI. So it's all about like data. We are collecting a huge amount currently, and organizations has got vast amount of data and they don't know what they want to do with the data really. And everyone thinks like, okay, we have a lot of data, but we have to get valuable information out of it. But how do you go about doing it? How do you classify your data? And do you have the right infrastructure in order to get valuable information out of the data? So where AI is helping organizations is, as you can see here, with the help of like what you can see in terms of images, what you can hear in terms of voices, what you can understand in terms of the common languages which people use, and how do you bring or how do you get knowledge out of your data. So that's what AI is really helping organizations with. So you can take your data, and that data can be either structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. But what you can do is you can utilize some of these AI services that Microsoft provides and pretty much convert that data into more valuable information for your organization. So that is basically the intersection, because the big data, the wealth of information that you capture with the infrastructure, that cloud that can provide for you for processing your data, and with the different services, AI services that Microsoft provides, pretty much you can gain valuable information out of your data. Has anyone heard about the chatbot lawyer? Oh, okay. So there is a website called donotpay.com. So I would just recommend to go and visit the website. So I was quite interested because it is a 17-year-old university student who created this bot. And he created it based on the fact that like he got a parking ticket and saying like, okay, you have been parking here for a certain longer time, and then you need to go and pay the fine for that. So, and he knew like the place where he parked was correct, and the duration, he didn't cross the duration, but he wasn't sure why he got a parking ticket. So pretty much like he just went back and found out the right information to go back to them and say like, okay, legally I'm right, I have parked here and only for the certain duration. And then he thought through saying like, okay, how many other people would be getting parking tickets, but they don't know how do they go back and defend on their parking ticket. So he created a bot. So he created a chat bot just to start with this, anything to do with if you got any parking tickets that is incorrect, then probably how can you quote what is the legal thing in order to claim your money back or get that parking ticket sorted out. That's how he started this chatbot. And now if you go there, like you can, this chatbot currently sorts a lot of legal problems. And one thing to be careful is like, I told like it's a university student created the chatbot. It's not that he's interpreting the legal things. He has got proper lawyers behind the scenes who interpret the legal things to convert it into a chatbot. So that is something to keep in mind, because with AI, you need to be really careful in terms of what you are conveying, and you need to have the right subject matter experts working with the right data sets. If you haven't watched this before, I would recommend to go and check that out. Great. In terms of the Azure AI platform, you have got the AI apps and agents. Pretty much what it gives you is more around the pre-built AI services. So Microsoft have already given a whole heap of pre-built AI services, which we'll be talking, I'll be talking in the subsequent slides. What you can really use is you can take any of these pre-built AI services and plug it in easily in your existing applications. And you can turn those applications into AI-enabled ones. And how many of your organizations have got contact center? Great. Mostly every organization has got a contact center or a customer service environment where there will be people ringing you asking for questions, and there should be someone responding to their questions. Has anyone got frustrated that they didn't have any 24/7 service with their providers? Great. I myself was frustrated. Coming from New Zealand, I think half of the time, like I like to do my bill payments and things towards the end of the day after my work, because during a quiet time, during that time, and I get frustrated. A lot of my insurance companies, utilities companies, they don't allow me to pay my bills after a certain amount, like after a certain time, like after 5 p.m. over there. So it's just so frustrating, because you remember first thing in the morning I have to pay my bills, and then you come back in the evening and say like I totally forgot, got immersed with my work, and I don't have a way to pay my bills. But that's what chatbots enables you to do, because it's quite easy. You can create a chatbot and to improve the customer service, and you don't know how much it is going to alleviate the pain for your customers. Because this pain I had 2 years ago, but some of my providers have already given me a chatbot interface where now I can go after hours and I can pay my bills, or I can pay my insurance renewal. I can do my insurance renewal too. So this is quite interesting to understand, like how the existing pre-built services as well as bots is going to change the way how we interact with our customers. The second part is knowledge mining. As I mentioned, like we have got wealth of data in every organization, and people want to get like value out of the data. And one of the things you can do with your data is, whether it is structured, unstructured, doesn't matter. You can get information out of it through using cognitive search. We'll be touching around cognitive search. Everyone knows about enterprise search, correct? Like you may have a SharePoint site or something that automatically does the search for you, which searches through PDF documents and Word documents or websites and everything. But have you ever considered like searching on images, searching videos? And that's what the cognitive search gives you, that capability. So you can put a keyword, and automatically the search will automatically pick all the videos or images that is relevant to that keyword, and also like includes it into your search, and even audio files. And that is going to revolutionize like how the enterprise search is going to be in the future. And then finally, machine learning. So machine learning is not something like we are talking about right now. machine learning has been there for years, and even in yesterday's presentation, Anna mentioned like AI started basically back in 1950s, and but we didn't have the right amount of infrastructure and things in order to do it in a better scale. And that's what currently we have the luxury, like we have the infrastructure, we have the cloud supporting us with that scale of infrastructure. So now we can do a lot of things using machine learning and deep learning. So again, Microsoft provides you like Azure Machine Learning Studio as well as Azure Machine Learning Service. All these products are going to help developers to make machine learning easy for them to use. I'll be briefly touching upon ML.NET. And how many of you have heard about ML.NET? Great. So ML.NET is how Microsoft is bringing machine learning for .NET developers. So if you have been using or developing applications using .NET, what ML.NET allows you to do is to bring machine learning capabilities with your skill set that you have already got. Great. So then what does the skills really the developers need if they want to build AI applications? So I will segregate the skills into two parts. One is you need to have a certain amount of technical skills, and of course you need to have soft skills. And this is really required, especially when it comes to AI. And I'll tell you like what are the soft skills you need and why you need them also. So in terms of technical skills, you need to be good in at least one programming language. And that is a common thing I normally tell all developers is if you are very good in one programming language, you can pick up any other languages as you need. So it doesn't matter whether you are a C# developer or you know Python or you know R. As long as you are well versed in one, that should be sufficient enough. The second thing is understanding of the basic principles of data science. So what is data science is? So getting the basic understanding of data science will help you in terms of to understand why do we use algorithms and so on. The third thing is natural language processing and deep learning. So how much you need to know about this? So Microsoft is developing all these tools to make things easier. Just a background amount of information, that's what you need to know. Like you are not going to become like a data scientist to do a complete modeling from scratch. So what you are going to really do is a basic understanding of these terminologies and how do you utilize them in your applications. A simple example, if I say, is if you are creating a bot, and I normally use this example in most of my sessions. So when I wanted to create a bot myself, this is a few years ago when Microsoft introduced about bot framework and things. I just decided with my friend and said like, okay, let us create a coffee bot. And because if I want to order a coffee, how do we go about ordering a coffee? So there was a series of questions like the dialogues that we wanted to create, just saying like, oh, okay, what is the type of drink you want to have? Is it a flat white or is it a cappuccino or hot chocolate? Then, okay, do you have it with sugar or without sugar? Fine. Is it a regular or a large drink? Fine. So the series of questions went on and on. And after some time, I got frustrated and I said to my friend like, okay, you're asking far too many questions for me to just order a coffee. And he said like, but we need to know what you like to have because there is a lot of options here that we need to consider before I can just get your order. So I said like, okay, but how do I normally go and order a coffee? I'll just go to my cafe and just say like, give me a flat white with 2 sugars. That's it. I don't say anything. Or if I want to specify the size, I would just say like a regular flat white with 2 sugars. And automatically they know like, okay, I am asking for a regular, the drink is a flat white, and I'm asking for 2 sugars, and it has got milk. Great. So that is what the natural language processing is. Your bot needs to be clever enough to take that particular phrase and then automatically plug in the options to say like what type of coffee I'm ordering here and whether I need it with or without sugar or whether it's a regular or a large coffee. And that's what natural language processing is. When you're creating bots as developers, this is something you need to keep in mind, saying how do you make it easy for your end users to use your bots? It's not about like building a bot is easy. That's what I tell people. But how do you build an intelligent bot? That's where the difficulty comes in. And that's where you have to do a lot of homework or research in terms of finding out how typical users interact for that particular use case. Then you have cognitive services, which we'll be talking in detail, and we'll look at some demos also, like what are the different services that are available and how you can plug it into your applications. Similarly, same thing with machine learning and bot framework. These are the core technical skills that you need to have if you want to become an AI developer. But when you look at from a soft skill perspective, problem solving skills, I think most of the software developers have that. If you don't have that, I'll be surprised. Of course, analytical thinking, that's another one, because without that, I don't know how can you think about a logic or so on. One thing I would say is understanding of data. Maybe not all software developers understand data. So because you will be given a data model or something from your data architect, and you'll be just plugging in, building an application. But I think understanding of data would be one important thing that every developer needs to know if you want to become an AI developer. And of course, the willingness to learn new skills. You shouldn't get scared when you talk about like ML.NET or automated machine learning and things. So again, all these things are going to be made easy for developers to use. So it's all about putting the effort in learning or gaining these skills. And finally, the attention to detail. Because when you deal with data and the accuracy of data, because we are going to build models to say like, okay, to do predictive models, and the accuracy is really important. You can't just randomly throw some data set which is not cleansed and then coming up with a recommendation that is not going to be useful for your business at all. Then that defeats the purpose of why are we working on models. So attention to detail is important. And finally, patience. So machine learning and especially coming up with an outcome is not going to be a simple job. It can be made simple with automated machine learning, but if you look at the current situation for all the data scientists is, like they have to run the model again and again and again, as and when new data set comes in, or they may get some feedback coming from the end user, so they may need to tweak the model and they have to rebuild their models again. So there are a lot of tools that are available to make this repeatable process easy. But still, you need to have that patience in terms of understanding why are you doing this and what is the outcome that you are trying to achieve. Great. I think these are the technical skills and the soft skills you really need if you want to become an AI developer. And I'm saying this based on my practical experience, and these are the things that I really used to transition from a developer into an AI developer. But I've been working in data for the last 10 years. So I had that understanding about how do I analyze the data, how do I go about understanding a domain using the data. So that really helped me to transition quite easily. But it's not hard, just to go and look at your data sets and what are the different data sets that your application is using. If you start getting into that level, probably quite easily you can get a good understanding of data. Great. So how many of you have used cognitive services? Quite a few. Great. So the Azure Cognitive Services, it comes in 5 different categories: your decision, the speech, vision, language, and web search. And as you can see here, some of those services are still in preview, but they are available for you to use. And if you haven't tried cognitive services, Microsoft have given all these cognitive services that you can use it for free for 12 months. So you need to just have an Azure subscription and you can start using these cognitive services and get used to how do I apply these cognitive services in my real world scenarios. So some of the key cognitive services here I would talk about is, or the new ones that they have released, which really emphasize to me more around is the forms recognizer. So I have been working in IT industry for more than 20 years now. And one of my frustration when I go for organizations is they still use paper-based forms. So how many of your organizations use paper-based forms? Great. So that is always the pain, because how do you integrate a paper-based form with backend systems? When I saw forms recognizer, I was so happy because I said like, okay, finally we are trying to get a solution for this problem. Yes, we had OCR and things, but sometimes the OCR capabilities is not that good. So the forms recognizer is still in its early stage, but that is something to look into, and because that is going to really change the way how you will be using forms in your organizations. And the other one is the computer vision. A lot of organizations deal with a lot of images, and how do you get value out of those images? And that's where the computer vision service is going to be really useful. And these are for common objects that you already know about. So you can give a photograph and image, and you can find out like whether the image has got a building or an image has got a tree or things. So these common objects can be detected by computer vision. But people come and ask me saying, okay, so I know this is a dog. It detected it, but it doesn't tell me what the breed of the dog, the breed the dog belongs to. And that's where custom vision comes into play. So if you want to go for more like particular, drill down into particular categories, not a generic object, then you need to build your own models using custom vision service, and pretty much you can plug into that into your applications. And then you have got the speech. And again, the speech service is really valuable for organizations where they have got contact centers. I had an interesting use case with one of my clients where they had to, the operator has to, when they talk to the customers, we have to capture that information as well as feed it into the CRM system. And half of the time, like they have been taking notes. So they will be talking to the customers after the call. They will take, okay, this is the conversation, and then they have to feed that into the CRM. And if they get another call, they totally forget about the conversation, or even they totally even forget about loading that conversation into the CRM tool. And that's where the speech services are good, because it can recognize, and it can also do translation, and you can feed it into your downstream applications quite easily. When we talk about cognitive services, a lot of people think about, I don't want to put the data onto the cloud. So is there any options available for me where I want to leverage these services, but I don't want to move the data out of on-premises? And that's where like cognitive services on containers are going to be helpful for those organizations who can't move the data to the cloud, but still want to make use of these services into their applications without moving the data. So your data can reside still in on-premises, but still you can leverage the cognitive services quite easily. Great. Bots. So when we talk about customer service, which I gave you a good example around where bots can be really handy, and I will reiterate the same statement. Building a bot is easy, but building an intelligent bot is not that easy. So you have to put the effort in terms of understanding your use case, understanding like what is the best way I can give the outcome for my customers with a good conversational flow. And that is really important to understand and do that. And the life cycle of a conversation bot looks like as simple as this. You still do a design, because you need to understand the flow of the conversations, and you do the build, you develop the bot. And I don't know how many of you have noticed the announcements that came at Ignite this week. Like there is a bot composer, framework composer that was announced. It is in preview. So currently when we want to do dialogue flows for a bot, like we have to do that in code. And what Microsoft is providing us is a tool where you can design the dialogues. Because the person who is actually designing the dialogues will be a different person. It's not a sometimes developer they're not good enough in designing the conversational dialogues. So that's why like they have got a tool now which you can easily plug it into your bot, and you can say like you can do the design separately of your conversational flow, and then you can easily plug it into your bot, and then you can expose it to your end users. So if you are worried about like how do I build a dialogue of conversations, go and try that preview, which is the bot framework composer, and you'll be able to create dialogues quite easily. And then of course like you have the emulator to test it locally first before you can publish your bot onto Azure and test it over there. And then finally you can also connect your bot to various channels, like whether you are using like Skype for Business, or you are using Teams, or you are using Slack. You can easily connect your bot into any of these channels. Just a quite interesting question. Why do we really need a bot? Isn't mobile application solving the problem for us? Like we have got an application that allows us to pay our bills and things and so on. So why do we really need a bot? Exceptions, fine, but yeah, but mobile applications or even self-service websites will also do the self-service. One of the thing, I don't know whether you have noticed, is the number of mobile applications people have started using has drastically reduced. And the reason for that is because if I want to pay my bill by insurance, I need to have a separate app for that. And if I have to pay my bill for my utilities company, that's a separate app for that, and so on. So the number of apps I have to use gradually has increased. What bots also allows you to do is like I need just a single chat interface. So whether my chat interface is going to be like I'm going to use Teams or am I going to use Skype for business, but if organizations expose their bots in different channels, what I really need is a single chat, like conversational application in my mobile. That's it. I don't need more than that. Right? That will avoid the number of applications that you want to install and keep it on your mobile and keep it up to date. So that is something to keep in mind. Great. So let us quickly jump into a demo of how do we use the cognitive services. So I'll start with a simple bot, and then we will jump into cognitive services, or we'll start with cognitive services itself, because if that makes it simple. So this is a GitHub repository, and this is not my GitHub repository. This is Microsoft GitHub repository for cognitive services notebooks. As you can see here, there is a whole heap of notebooks that are available, which allows you to go and play with cognitive services. Great. So what we really need to do here is I have just downloaded the entire GitHub repository, and I picked up one notebook and I hosted it on my Microsoft Azure notebooks. If you haven't used Microsoft Azure notebooks, this is a cloud platform where you can run your notebooks quite easily. Great. As you can see here, I have got all the notebooks listed here. So in order to use this notebook, the only thing you need to do is to provision a cognitive service. So depending on whether you are going to use the Bing service or whether you are going to use the Face, you need to just provision the cognitive service on Azure and then capture the endpoint and the keys. So I'll quickly show you here. I created a cognitive services service, as you can see here. And I have got a key as well as an endpoint. And these are the two things I really need. If you really want to know about how do we provision and so on, check my blog post. I talk about single subscription keys as well as like a multiple subscription cognitive services. So single subscription is you can use a separate subscription for every single cognitive service. Like I'm going to use computer vision, I can provision a separate computer vision service, or I'm going to use face recognition, I can provision a separate one for that. Or you can go for a multi-key thing where I provision a cognitive service on Azure, and that allows me to use the same keys and endpoints whether I'm going to use Bing search or whether I'm going to use computer vision or something. So it depends on how you want to handle your security in your organization, or I want to keep separate access keys for separate services, then you can go for your single service one. Or if you go for multi-service model, then what it allows you to do is have a single access key, like you provision a cognitive service as a single service, and you can use it for most of the services. So that's what I have done here. So I have just provisioned a cognitive service on Azure, and I just copied the keys and the endpoints. And what I have really done in this notebook here, so let me go and just pull the Bing search one. Great, I just replaced the subscription key here and the URL, what I wanted to use. So this is the URL I provisioned in my Azure environment, and this is the access key I got for the same. So let us quickly run this. I'll just clear all the outputs if there are any. So this is the cool thing about notebooks because it allows me to run my commands quite easily. So as you can see here, it is running the statements. I'm going to just use the past summit 2019. And again, I'm using Python here. So this is, I'm not using C# or anything. I just downloaded the notebook from the GitHub repository, just hosted that notebook on my Azure notebooks. I just provisioned it over there, and I just ran it over here. So as you can see here, the only thing I have just changed is my access key and the endpoint. And here you go, like how quickly you can just learn about how do you use Bing search in your applications. So this is how do you use it in a Python if you're using Python as your language. And same thing is I will show you how do you use the same if you're using C# as your language. Great. So in this example, what I have got is I want to create a simple bot. So if you're new to creating a bot, you don't need to worry about like, oh, how do I go about creating a bot and so on. Just what you can do is go into File, New Project, and if you type bot, great. So as you can see here, there is a core bot. I have an empty bot or an echo bot. Just click on echo bot and say create a new project with your name, and that will automatically create a bot for you. And that's exactly what I have kept in my first example. My first bot is basically just an echo bot. I didn't write a single line of code in there. What I really did is create a new project and provisioned an echo bot, and let us quickly see what it does for me. So a couple of things in terms of if you want to create a bot, you need to have, especially if you're using C# as the language, you need to have Visual Studio. You can use Community Edition also, doesn't matter. You can either use Community, Professional, or Enterprise. Whichever you use, you can still create a bot in there. And of course, you need bot emulator, because if you want to test your bots locally, you need to install bot emulator, and that is one of the prerequisites you need to have. So what I have done here is I created an echo bot, and I went here. What you can do is I can create a new bot configuration. Your bot name is, you can say like, this is my first bot, or whatever name you want to give. It will be asking for an endpoint URL. So when you create a new bot configuration for your emulator, where do you get the endpoint URL is just run your bot. So I'm just going to change my project to my first bot and run it. So when I run this, automatically it will give me a URL. Sorry.
What's an endpoint and what's the emulator?
Okay, emulator is to test my bot locally. So how do I do, if I'm conversing with someone, how my bot is going to play with that. So this is just testing your bot. So I'll just show it shortly. And the endpoint is nothing but URL. URL and endpoint, or people use it in a common way. So when they say endpoint is basically a URL. So now I have run my bot example, my first bot, and here is my endpoint or the URL. I just copy this. And one thing to keep in mind is when you are copying your endpoint, you need to append that with API/messages. So if I go back to bot framework, and if I say this, I need to append that with API/messages. And that is something you need to keep in mind, because if you don't include that, your bot may not be listening. So if you're worried, like why my bot is not listening, and then just to give a name saying my first bot. And when you save and connect, and this is sufficient enough to test your local bots. So we haven't published the bot into any cloud platform or anything yet. This is just I created a bot, and I want to test that bot in my emulator. Just cancel this, and I'll use this echo bot which I created. So as you can see here, this is the endpoint, and my bot is in listening mode now. So what this echo bot basically does is if you give a phrase, and it will repeat it. So welcome to Past Summit 2019. There you go. So that is as simple as that. So this is what the emulator can help you to do, is quickly you can test your bot whether it how the conversation is going to happen between the end user and the bot. So the other example what I have got quickly is, I'll just show that. So this one, the first one is just create a new project, and you can immediately you can say I have successfully created a bot. But the next one is more around, as I said, simple bot is easy, but when you want to make a bot that is useful, then you have to start infusing that with more intelligence. And one of the intelligence that you can add to a bot is adding cognitive services. So we have seen a whole heap of APIs in the screenshot, like in the slide which I showed before of cognitive service. Every single API that you can integrate it with your bot depending on your use case. So whether you are building a search for your bot, like you can just say to saying like, for instance, as a developer, I'm interested in latest technology news. So I can have a bot in the first thing in the morning and say like, okay, what's new in Azure? So I can get a list of things rather than me going and searching all the RSS feeds and stuff. I can just create a bot just to bring the news to me of what I really need. So just think about the possibilities and the opportunities. So what we'll be quickly looking here is, I just took an Echo bot and then started just adding a bit more just to integrate it with Bing search. So I'll quickly show you how the bot works, then we'll dive into the code. So before you can debug this, first thing is you need to run your project. So now I have to change my project to say like, okay, my search bot. While that is running, let me clear this off and open my search bot. Great. So this is my search bot. So what I have got here is a set of cards. Like currently I have just got one card which allows the user to choose one choice, but you can have a number of. So I can list out all the different type of Bing searches, like do you want to do a web search, or you want the news, or you want to check for images or videos. So everything can be listed as an option here. And as soon as I choose the Bing search, great. So here what it does is it talks about, it gives me the news about the Rugby World Cup. I just said like, okay, give me some news about the Rugby World Cup 2019. And that's what I was able to get that here. So I didn't present it in a nice way because I wanted to keep it simple for anyone who wants to start using it. You can decorate this in terms of cards and other things. Like if you are using images, you can have a carousel that is showing all the images related to Rugby World Cup within your bot itself. But this is quite a simple thing, is how can you easily integrate this inside your bot. So that's what I wanted to show here as part of this session. So as you can see here, like this is the news and this is the total number of search records that are available for the Rugby World Cup on Bing search. And then automatically, like I'm just bringing in just a top first news. And it gives you the link also to say like if you want to find more information about that news, where you can go and find. So that's one example. The other one is quickly show is around how do you incorporate images in your bot. So this one is using the vision bot. So I'll just quickly run this. So one thing, common thing you would have noticed is the endpoint is still the same, because when you are running it, it is using the same endpoint here for your different projects. But you can change your endpoints also in your project to say like, okay, I want to run each and every bot in a different port number, and you can do that. So here what I'm doing is I have got a series of like I have given an image to say like, okay, use this particular image and give me a description about the image. So you can do images, either you can just have it as an inline attachment. So we can ask the user to say like upload it from your desktop, or you can say like, okay, this is the URL of an image that is sitting on somewhere on the internet. You can provide the URL, or you can also like provide an image and then upload it, and then you can also get information out of that image. So either all the three options, like I have just used an inline attachment here. I have provided a image here, and it just gives me what is the description about the image. So here it talks about like the cricketer Sachin Tendulkar and his family. And the interesting thing is it detected Sachin Tendulkar in there. So that is one of the thing the vision service is capable of doing. It can detect celebrities. So there is a whole heap of celebrities that can be detected using that particular cognitive service, the vision service. And if you're using the computer vision service, probably you can give an image and automatically it can get the information out of that, including celebrities or brands that are used on the images, and a brief description. So here I have just displayed the description, but the service actually returns a whole heap of information that I can utilize in my bot in different ways as I need. And this is a sample image, but think about like you can ask people to upload different images and you can utilize it in your bot. A simple use case where it was useful for one of my customers is we used to have like a meter reading that we do for typically old meters that are in a lot of like houses, and sometimes like we need to get the meter reading, and if the person who goes to their house for meter reading, and if the landlord or tenant is not available, then they can't do the meter reading. So they have to come back because sometimes meters may be inside the house, they would have locked it or something. Until the meter reading is provided, the utilities companies can't bill the customer. So historically what used to happen is that they have to take a photograph that has to be emailed, and someone has to just look at that photograph, at the email and the photograph, capture the reading, and then put it into the CRM system, and then the billing engine will create the bill for the customer. And as you can see here, there is a lot of areas where things can go wrong and things can not happen on time, which frustrates our customers. What we have given is like a couple of ways. One is an application where they can just go and take a photo themselves and send it to us, and it automatically processes behind the scenes. Or the second option is talking to a customer like a bot, where they can just upload an image and it automatically passes that image into cognitive service, and then it can extract the reading out of it, and it can also integrate into our CRM system automatically. So that's an example of a use case where this is going to be really helpful. You may think about, oh, who is going to upload a photograph? But there are a lot of scenarios where we still ask people to take a photo and extract information out of that image, and then want to process it in our backend systems. Great. So that quickly showed you the example in terms of like how can you use, how can you quickly create a bot, as well as like how can you use cognitive services inside your bots in different use cases. And these use cases range across all the industries. So it's not so specific to utilities or retail. So in every industry, you can use bots and cognitive services quite easily. And how hard it is going to be, take an existing cognitive service and integrate it into your application. And that's what we did, because we had a website where we were asking, we had put a form in there, and it had just a upload button where we were asking the end users just to upload an image. And we changed that in such a way to say like, okay, we changed as part of a mobile application capability. You launch our application, you take a photo of your meter reading, and automatically it will just hit a button, send, and everything happens automated behind the scenes. Great. So we saw about cognitive services and bots, and now a little bit about machine learning. So machine learning, again, there are various services on Azure that helps you to do machine learning. One is the Azure Machine Learning Studio, and Machine Learning Studio really helps if you are not well versed in writing your own models or algorithms. So what you can do is, it provides you a drag and drop interface where you can go and you can say like, okay, I need to pull my data, and I have to create a model, and you can choose the algorithm that you want to use for your data. But a basic knowledge about algorithms is really important. So you can't just go there and drag and drop. So you need to know what the data that you are putting and what is the outcome that you are trying to achieve with your data. And that's where I think when I talked about some technical skills, a bit of knowledge about data science is really important, because at least a basic understanding of what models that I can use for what scenarios. But after that, that's the basic thing you need to know. After you know that, then probably it's quite easy to create a model using Azure Machine Learning Studio, or you can use Azure Machine Learning Service, which is again gives you both the combination of the same the graphical user interface, but also it gives you the ability to build like deep learning models and stuff within for the end-to-end life cycle. So if you want to build a repeatable process, and where Azure Machine Learning Studio doesn't give you that enough number of models, to give an example, like it supports around 25 algorithms. So, but if you are planning to use an algorithm that is not supported by Azure Machine Learning Studio, then you will jump onto Azure Machine Learning Service, where your data scientists can create their models and automatically utilize it. And that is not something you are going to create it unless and until you want to get, as a developer, want to do that. But this is just giving you an idea. If you are a developer wants to learn about machine learning, I would ask you to jump on to use Azure Machine Learning Studio. Around 25 different algorithms are already exposed, which means for solving most of the common things. And the second thing is around automated machine learning. How many of you have heard about automated machine learning? Great. So if you haven't tried that before or used that before, I would recommend to do that. So what Microsoft have done is you don't want to use your data scientist valuable time to solve simple things like, okay, how do I predict a price of a car? So that should be a simple thing. So you know what is your input is going to be, and you know what is the different parameters that you want to apply. So you can easily automate the different models and come up with an optimal model that is going to give you the better results. So what Microsoft have done with the automated machine learning is taking up those type of common use cases and making the machine learning more automated. So you feed in your data, you feed in your parameters to say like what are the factors that is going to contribute for the price, and then automatically it will create the models for the different combinations, and also it will recommend this is the most optimal model that you should be using for your use case. And that's where automated machine learning is going to be valuable. But there is another part which is machine learning for .NET developers. So Microsoft didn't force .NET developers to say like, okay, you need to learn about Python, you need to know about R. They still wanted the developers to use the language that they know, which is C# or F#, but still they can create machine learning algorithms quite easily. And we'll just quickly look at a demo of what ML.NET is about and what it provides you. ML.NET is nothing but machine learning for .NET, and it is mainly created for .NET developers to create machine learning algorithms. And you can, the ML.NET is dependent on .NET Core 3.0. So just in case, like if someone wants to know about what is the framework that it supports, and probably like you can run that on 32-bit or 64-bit, doesn't matter. Great, let me quickly jump into this example. So if you want to create a machine learning model using .NET, the first thing, you need to have the ML.NET builder. So as you know, this is still in preview version, but this is something that you really require if you want to create a machine learning model in .NET. So the ML builder allows you to create the machine learning models quite easily using the graphical user interface tool. Yes, you can still do that with code without using the ML builder, but this will make your life easier. So this is just something you have to install first before you use it, and it supports both Visual Studio 2017 as well as 2019. So once you have done that, probably what you should be doing is to create a simple console application. So in this example, I have just created a simple console application, which is ML.NET samples, my first ML application. And I just right click on this and say like, okay, add machine learning to that. So as you can see here, I'm just saying, okay, create a machine learning. You won't see the machine learning option here until you install that particular module which I showed you. So here it allows you to build your own machine learning model. So you can choose whether you want to build a sentiment analysis or a price prediction model. So you can choose it here, and you can choose the input. So whether your input is a file or the data is sitting in a SQL server, you choose the information. So here I will choose file, and I have got a sample file which I have downloaded. So this is just an example that is available on docs.microsoft.com, which is quite easy for you to follow through. So sentiment analysis this is the data I have got, and I have got a set of comments that people have provided, and probably it is going to do a sentiment score based on that. So this is just the training data. So I'm just feeding this data for the machine learning model to train, and probably I can use this model then to test my examples. So I need to just say what is the column that needs to be predicted. I need to say the sentiment column that should be predicted, and what is the column that is going to be used in order to predict the sentiment, which is going to be my sentiment text. So once you provide this information, and then now you can hit on train, and what it does is it trains using the training data that you have provided, and it will create a couple of more models in your particular solution. So if you can see here, I have got 2 more projects got created as part of creating my machine learning model. One is another console application, which is my model builder. So this takes up everything in terms of the training. So all the inputs I have given, this is what is the file that I used for the model, and what are the parameters that I have provided as part of the training. So where I said like, okay, this is the label I'm going to use, this is the feature column, and this is all pretty much coded here. And this is the example I was saying, you don't need that model builder, but what it allows you to do is abstracts that this code by using that graphical user interface. So you can provide all the information there, or you can hand code it here if you want to. And finally, the ML model one, which has got all the inputs. So it automatically created the model classes that is required for my inputs and outputs based on the file that I got uploaded. So it can be a CSV file, or if your data is sitting in SQL Server, you can still provide that for your machine learning inputs and outputs. And finally, what I have got here is a simple piece of code. So I can feed in a input text here saying like, okay, this is the text I want to find the sentiment for this. I need to figure out the sentiment for this text. And finally, just to use the model that I have created and say like, okay, now predict the sentiment for this particular text. If I run this example, great. So is this toxic? Yes, it is. Because as you can see here, like the phrase I was used is that is rude. So of course, like it said like, okay, that's not the right way of conveying the message or providing commands. So that's a simple example. So what I have really done here is used the pre-built machine learning models that was provided by ML.NET, and quite easily I was able to create a model within .NET, and I can easily plug it into my existing application. So this is a classic example you can think about, like if you have an existing application or a .NET application, you can easily turn that into a AI-enabled application quite easily. So this is a simple use case, but there are a lot of complex other use cases you can do within ML.NET. So just to try and explore this, and I would definitely recommend you to download that model builder, because that will help you to abstract all the complexities that you need to do the code. But once you do that, just go and look at the different projects and the classes that it gets created, because that is really handy to know, like and helps you to automate your deployments. Great. So the last part of today's presentation is about not ML.NET, it's Azure Cognitive Search. So Azure Cognitive Search, as I said, is going to revolutionize how enterprise search is going to be in the future. And so one of the things with Azure Cognitive Search is currently it is expecting the data sets to be on cloud. So if you are considering using cognitive search, that is something to keep in mind, because the data sets need to be residing on the blob storage or somewhere, but it should be on the Azure service on cloud. What it allows you to do is all the cognitive services that I explained, like whether it's vision or whether it's like even anomaly detections or the web search, everything can be easily plugged into your data sets, and these cognitive services can make your search more AI enabled. So what you can do here is like you feed in your data set, then you can just say like, okay, these are the cognitive skills I need to add to my search, and finally you get a search output. What it allows you to do is when you search for a keyword, it pretty much goes and applies all the different cognitive skills that you have chosen, and it searches against those cognitive skills. So when it does the indexing process, because typically a search goes through an indexing process, as part of the indexing process, what it does is like, okay, if I have said like, okay, integrated with the computer vision service, so that I want to just detect the images and the videos within my file repository, automatically it can go and scan through all the images and do the indexing for images as well as videos. And that is one of the key things with the Azure Cognitive Search. So just a quick demo of Azure Cognitive Search. It's quite easy to provision and use it. So what I need to really do is provision a simple Azure Cognitive Search service. Don't create. Great, I need to provide a service name, so maybe past summit, we'll say lowercase. So it's a past summit cognitive search, and I can use, come from Australia East, that's the closest data center for us. Okay, so you have a free tier also that you can use. As you can see here, the offering is based on number of indexes and the indexes that will be available. So if you have a large volume of data, then probably you will decide the pricing tier based on that to do the amount of indexing. But this is just for testing reasons, so you can just go and provision it. So what it basically does is like it goes and creates a new cognitive search service. Okay, what is it? Great. Need this. Great. Anyhow, I have got one already created. I can quickly show that while it is creating. So this is the cognitive search demo that I have already gotten. So one thing you can do is you can import the data. So when you hit on import data, once you provision the service, you can choose an existing source, or you can just pick and choose some samples. So the samples, or there are a couple of samples that are already available, because sometimes if you want to go and pull through data which includes documents, PDFs, and as well as I want images, videos. If you can't prepare that data set, then probably you can use some of the sample data sets that are already available. You can pick and choose a data set, and then you can, the next process is like, okay, how do I enrich it? How do I enrich my search using cognitive services? You can go and just hook it up to a particular cognitive service. So what I have done here is this is the generic cognitive service that I have provisioned. If you, in my previous, for the previous demo, when I explained you the bot service, so it automatically picked up that particular cognitive service in my resource group, what I had in Azure. So this will provide me the ability to use custom vision, web search, and so on. So when I told you like you can provision a cognitive search service, either specific to vision category, or specific to face, or specific to Bing search or something, or you can provision just a cognitive service itself. Let me quickly explain that what I was talking about. So when you go here, you can basically say like, okay, I want to provision a computer vision service. So here I'm going and creating a computer vision service. So what it allows me to do is to use all the APIs within computer vision service. But if you provision a cognitive service, so this particular service allows me to use vision, language, search, and speech services using a single API. So I have to provision this once, and I get the access key, and pretty much I can use this under any example. So if I want to use APIs under vision or language or search. But the previous one where I specifically asked for provision computer vision service, it allowed me to do only for computer vision alone. So what it does is it automatically detected the cognitive service that I provisioned already in my resource group. And then you can add the different enrichments, saying like, okay, I want to extract people names, I want to extract organization names, location names, the key phrases, detect the language, translate the text if it is indifferent to English. And then I can save the enrichments if I want to store it into a Power BI report or something. So that is also capable. Now this is something new Microsoft have added. So you can easily take the output of this and publish it into a Power BI report if you need to. And then just customizing my index. So what now it will do is it takes up the data, and now you can see here these are all the different columns that I had in my CSV, the sample data file, and now it creates an indexer. So what it does is it now goes and takes the data based on the cognitive skills that I have chosen. The indexer will go and process this data, and my search will be ready and available for me. So the key advantage of using this is now you can take your enterprise search to the next level. So when people, as I said, like when people are going to put keywords and things, now you can pull through videos, images, and everything related to that. A quite interesting example is, if you haven't seen, so the JFK files, and so this is the John Kennedy's assassination. So if they have just a scan through all the documents and everything, images related to that particular incident. And if you go and look for a search and for a particular keyword, as you can see here, handwritten information, images, it recognized, okay, so if you have like, if your keyword matches to any particular person, then it automatically detects those things. So as you can see here, it's not just restricted only for the text or just PDF documents or Word documents. Now it can go and scan through much more in all the different media related files also. And also like semi-structured documents like JSON files, XML files, everything can be now scanned using the Azure Cognitive Search. Great, so that's pretty much your cognitive search. Let me quickly check whether the sample has completed here. Great, so if I go back to the cognitive search demo. So you don't need to build an application in order to test the cognitive search, because what it allows you to do is when you provision the cognitive search, you can use a search explorer that comes within the Azure portal itself. So here I can search for, give me everything that you have scanned. As you can see here, the output is provided as a JSON information. I have chosen for all the languages, so it gives me the translation of the description across all the languages. But you can see here all the key attributes. But if I just say like, okay, I want to have only search for beach houses, or as you can see, it will pull only data related to that search criteria. So quite easily, like you can start testing your particular search scenarios using the search explorer here. Again, this is OData search, and if you know the OData notations, like, okay, how do I limit? So you can build your OData queries quite easily here, and you can test your search as part of the Azure Cognitive Search. Any questions on that?
Your presentation is going to be on YouTube.
Yes, it is already available on the PASS website, so you can download the presentation. Yeah, I'll also just update my samples in there on the GitHub repository. Yeah, go ahead.
What is your GitHub hosting? Sorry if you mentioned that earlier.
No, I will put it on my PowerPoint slide. So I will just upload it after the session. So you should be able to get that from my PowerPoint slide itself. So is there any use cases that you have got in your organization that you can think of like that will be valuable after going back after this session? Great, I can see some people nodding their heads. And great, so we looked at the second part of the demo. What I'll do is quickly show you another demo that will be, which is an integrated version of all the different services. So I was talking about the different Bing search services and so on. So we just saw a simple example around how do we do that. What I have done here is just a quick demo of if I want to use all the different combination of the search service, how do I use it? Great, so what I'll do is I'll go and provision a new bot configuration. Okay, 1 second. Just stop the services that are running. Just bear with me. Okay, so if that doesn't work, it doesn't matter because this is an additional demo anyhow. So what I was trying to show was like when I showed you, I just showed just one option in terms of the web search. But what this allows you to do is explore all the different options. So as usual, don't forget search. I'll just store it here temporarily. Okay, this is not what I wanted to show. This is just again an echo bot, sorry. I think I pulled through the wrong example here. Sorry for wasting the time. I think what I'm actually was trying to pull through an example is to show all the different varieties of the visual ping searches that I can use. Just bear with me that I can pull through that example. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, just ask me. Here's a complete one.
So what's the accuracy of the cognitive search compared to the solar search?
Cognitive search compared to the okay, so to so. Cognitive search, as you say, it's evolving, and one of the things in the recent improvements which Microsoft are trying to do is if you see here how they integrated with the Power BI dashboard to make it more integrated with the different applications within the Microsoft stack itself. And that's what I would see where cognitive search is getting into. In comparison to Solar Search, like I don't know how much they are integrating with the cognitive search APIs, like the other APIs like the vision, whether they scan through images or not. So they are powerful in terms of the normal text-based search, but when it comes to images and things, you need to wait and watch on that. Okay, so this is the actual example. I'll just quickly show that. Great, in case people are leaving, it's fine, but I'll just quickly show this one if you have some time. Otherwise, no issues because this is anyhow an add-on example. Great, so this is quite thing. So where I showed you just a simple web search, but now I can say like, okay, give me all the images. And this is much more taking it to the next level, like how can you, okay, something went wrong on this. Let me quickly check. Sorry, I didn't plan for this demo, so I was just showing what I had before. Just sometimes my proxy server will play it. Great, no issues, like I'll show it later. But what it is trying to do is, as you can see in that bot channel, like it was showing all the different options. And what it is capable of doing is you can just to pick, say, do image search alone, and it automatically scans through all the images that it can pick through for the keyword that you're using. Similarly, if you say like news, it can pick through only the news. So Bing search gives you much wider capabilities in terms of like images, videos, news, or any common web searches that you want to do. Either you can collate them and you can sort it and present it to your end user, or you can categorize them as said, like, okay, if they are interested in more images, or you can channel it through based on the categories like that. And there are a lot more things that you can do with that. I'll be publishing a post on my blog, which is talking about how do you do that for every single Bing search service. So keep watching on my blog. My current blog, which talks about every single API call that you can use within the vision. So within the vision, I have just given examples around how can you use each and every endpoint that is available within the vision. So the plan is, if you keep watching my blog, probably I will be writing for across all the different cognitive services, and finally how you can integrate that with bots, especially if you're interested in more in the C# or Node.js related languages. Great, and thanks for attending my session. And I hope this would have given you an introduction about the different AI services. As a developer, like what are the skills that you really need and how can you utilize them in your existing applications in your organizations. Thanks for coming for the session.